Now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, everyone. This is Brian Ellington with Keller Williams University. Just wanted to do a quick sound check before we get started. If you can hear my voice, if you wouldn't mind typing into the question box, I can hear you, or what city you're from, I'd appreciate it very much. All right. Thanks, Rodney. I appreciate it. We're going to get started in just one moment. Hang tight until then. All right, if you can hear my voice, make sure your green microphone is muted. We're going to unmute everybody on the call. As long as we're not getting feedback from your line, we'll keep you unmuted. If we're getting a lot of feedback, our apologies, we're going to have to mute you just for the clarity of the call. So again, I'm unmuting everybody on the call. Make sure your green microphone is muted, or if you're calling in on your cell phone, make sure your phone is muted. Thank you so much, and Lance and Sarah, the floor is yours.
Hey, good morning, everybody. I know that this is an early morning session. We had to work around Chris's schedule, and we greatly appreciate the fact that he's even willing to do this call for us this morning. So thank you, especially to the people on the West Coast and in Alaska, because I understand that it's 5:45 in Alaska and 6:45 in California. So thank you to all of you that are participating. Wanted to go through the first 2 weeks and see what people's ahas were. Obviously, there was a significant drop in contacts made for the second week. We went from almost 40,000 down to 33,000 in contacts, and that obviously had a residual effect on everything else with appointments made and with emails added to the data bank. So just wanted to see what everybody's thoughts were regarding the second week versus the first week. So does anybody want to chime in and add some feedback?
Lance, this is Ben from Portland, Oregon. Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me was life started to get in the way. You know, at the end of that first week, you know, there's certainly some back patting and, hey, good job, and then you realize, oh, shoot, like we're just at the first leg of this giant marathon. We've got to keep our head focused and really get going. So it's really about just, for me, being intentional with my daily activity and my time blocking and moving things around to make sure that I can get the challenge accomplished and still be, you know, a participant in life like I need to be as well.
That's a great point. I'll throw this out there. Gary was looking at the numbers, and he provided this feedback. I thought goes right in line with what you're saying. Gary said that this is very cool and clearly a journey, not an event. It's a way of thinking and behaving that takes time to settle into a rhythm around. Time on this task is worth it, and when you do, the organization figures out how to make it an integral part of what they do. And then this quote I thought was phenomenal. The leader simply has to say, we are doing this, never stopping. Anybody else?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, great. This is Stacy from Philly Living, and one thing I noticed about our team when I was looking at the numbers and reviewing them on Wednesday was that we started out great on the first week, and Tuesday and Wednesday, they surpassed their goal. The next week, Tuesday and Wednesday were their strongest days, and then Monday was their, you know, the lowest of the 3 weeks, and then this past Monday shot up past the first week. So it kind of mirrored what I've heard people say. You know, people are getting into it, they're getting tired, they realize it's a marathon, and then they readjusted. And then the third week they came back strong. So I thought that was interesting to watch.
That's fantastic to hear, especially because, you know, that second week, it's basically an eye-opener and everybody's really tired, and then hopefully they get recharged for the third week, and you know what? Now we've got one more week to go, and you can see the finish line ahead.
Yes.
Who else?
What? Yeah, what?
Who else has something?
That's it, baby.
Why are you mad at me?
Anybody else have something to say? Is everybody still waking up?
Hello?
Yep, go ahead.
This is Ryan in Connecticut. My biggest challenge was, you know, with the increased connection, you know, the increased contacts, is basically learning to juggle 2 appointments a day and still do all the prospecting, you know, just trying to find the balance to make sure that I hit all the contacts while fitting in the appointments.
So what did you do to make that happen?
Time blocking. Time blocking and sticking to a schedule is key.
Completely agree. And do you see light at the end of the tunnel by doing that?
Yes, and I think for me, I just joined the team. I was with a small brokerage and not very busy, and then within a couple weeks got into this contest, so it was like, it was overload, you know, but now I'm realizing how important that schedule is and making sure that I time block, stick to the schedule, and yeah, so I think that was my biggest learning curve, was the time blocking, scheduling, and making sure that, you know, that I stick to it so I have time to do the follow-up and, you know, get all the appointments done as well as make the contacts.
Yep, completely agree. One of the things that we always preach when we're talking about people starting our organization is, in those first 100 days, you're memorizing scripts, learning to overcome objections, forming habits, and learning to time block. And I think that's key for success down the road for everybody.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, I mean, starting with this contest, it's like, okay, you know, this is the normal now. You know, I started into this, and there's not really, you know, as long as I keep this up, I'm going to be extremely successful. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, completely agree. That's the whole purpose of this contest, so I'm glad that that's worked out well for you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Who else has something?
Hi, Lance. This is Corey with the Hergenrother Group in the Twin Cities.
Yep, good morning.
Morning. I guess my biggest aha and challenge that I'm having, the aha is like one day this week, I think I only got like 12 contacts. And I get a lot of, you got a minute when I'm in the office, so really keeping my door shut. But when I'm not hitting my contacts, I'm getting that very uncomfortable feeling about not lead generating. And that's been the biggest mindset change for me, is that used to be I'm uncomfortable lead generating, and now it's I'm uncomfortable that I didn't hit my numbers.
That's awesome. Congratulations. That's a huge obstacle to overcome too.
Hey, it's Stacy again. What's your name? I'm actually heading to Minneapolis today.
This is Corey Dykeman.
Corey. Okay, cool. Which office are you in? I might just look you up.
I am in the Maple Grove office.
Okay, cool. You know, and I just want to add that I gave a tip to a colleague because he loved helping people, and people would always go to him for questions and get answers. And so I said, you know what, why don't you put a sign-up sheet on your door to say, I can answer your questions at 11, write your name down and your question. And since he's done that, nobody has signed up. You know, so on the one hand, he's like, oh, I really want to help people. And on the other hand, he's like, you know what, it doesn't bother me at all. You know, and it really helped people to become more independent or find the answer from, you know, wherever they could, not just him. So.
Oh, you're on the same call.
Yep, that's fantastic. Hey, Brian, do you want to talk about your call from yesterday and what the impact that this contest is having, even just outside our little environment of doing this contest?
Yeah, and I want to thank you all first off. So this is Brian Ellington. I'm the Chief Learning Officer for Keller Williams. Yesterday we had an Ignite kickoff call for the market centers and the people who do the Ignite training. For those of you who aren't familiar, Ignite is our non-capping agent training class. And we were teaching them how to have a more impactful, more effective Ignite class. These are the people who put on the class, who teach it. And every day in Ignite, the students are asked to do what we call the daily 10-4, where they make 10 phone calls, add 10 names to their database, write 10 handwritten notes, and preview 10 homes. And when you look at the results from the class and listen to the instructors and go sit in a class, what you hear more than anything is people complaining about the daily 10-4, that it's too much, which I'm sure some of you are smiling right now. If only I had to make 10 phone calls a day. So Lance and some of the folks here, they've been sharing the results with us from what you've been doing. And so yesterday on the call, we gave those instructors a little bit of ammunition by sharing with them that, and I don't know if you guys have even crunched the numbers yourselves as participants, but here's what you've done. Over the past 2 weeks, you've averaged 40 phone calls per day. You've averaged, I believe it's 11 appointments per person, 1 listing taken per person, 1 buyer agreement signed per person. And be able to share that not only are you guys doing 10 calls a day, you're doing 40, and the results are showing up. Was a very powerful moment for those folks who are going to be teaching that call. And it's something that they can take back to their classes and, you know, and tell the old grandpa story, you think you got it rough, uphill both ways in snow, which is, you know, exactly what you guys are doing. You're breaking new ground.
That's absolutely fantastic. So congratulations again to everybody that's participating in this event. I think the coolest part is going to be when you look at your income a month and even down the road from now, what impact that what you're doing today, the activities you're doing today, is going to have on your pocketbook a month, 2, 3 months down the road. So let's go for one more aha from the past week and even so far in this event. Anyone?
Hey Lance, just a quick reminder to folks, you're muted by your own microphone, so make sure that you unmute yourself. And if you're just not the kind of person who likes to speak up in a large group but would like to type in your ahas or questions as we go along, type those into the question box and I'll share those with the group.
Let's get one more aha before Chris starts on the call.
It's Christine Ritchie, Lance. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Hi, how are you?
Great.
Very good. So, I mean, this challenge has been a challenge. Like, definitely has put myself and my team under the line of fire. So, I've just been very challenged myself as the leader because I'm in a really big growth mode right now within my team of hiring, as well as in a shifting market, needing to be very hands-on with a growing team. And I have just felt like a complete failure and very, it's just been a really big challenge for me, and it's really bringing my energy down, and I'm just trying to figure out how to not feel that way and just, I guess, celebrate the success I've had that's improved. Can you help me with that a little bit?
Sure, it's all in your mind. What you're doing and accomplishing for your team is providing them with an opportunity to be successful by participating in this contest, and that is huge kudos for you, because in all reality, 145,000 real estate agents in Keller Williams, and there's only 31 teams participating in this event. So you take 31 teams with 6 people, that's not even 1%, or just over 1% of the number of people in the entire world that are participating in this, and you're providing that opportunity. So you should be celebrating that success alone and you're enabling them to have habits that will build upon the success later on down the road. Because if you focus on the activities, they're going to result in massive results down the road.
Right. Yeah, I just feel a little defeated, you know, because I'm coaching them, to get put these habits in place and the results, and here I am as the leader, and I'm challenged myself to perform. So I feel a little awkward in when I'm coaching them and when I'm holding them accountable that I'm not even hitting it, and here I am preaching to them to hit it. So I think it's more of a mindset for me. I just feel a little defeated this week.
Well, you can do it, and focus on the positive of what your impacting is and what your team is impacting is.
Right. Okay.
Just
wanted to share that.
Nope, that's great. Sheena from our team is going to have one final aha.
Hello everyone, I'm Sheena, and my biggest aha this week is definitely learning to say no to people. I have found that on my days that I'm very successful is because I've got the mindset, I'm focused, and there are no distractions. And I'm definitely the type of person, whoever comes in, peeks their head in the door, knocks on the door, I'm quick to drop everything and let me see what I can do to help. And I found that when I did that, I'd come back, oh crap, I don't remember what I was doing, where did I stop, I didn't even make a mental note of where I was at, so definitely a huge distraction. It was a disruption in my focus and my mindset, so really the biggest thing this week for me was really learning to say no and not going back and following up with that person until my Legion hours were done, and then I can go and spend my time and focus on that person who needed the help.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Okay, it's 9 o'clock. Is Chris Heller on the phone?
Who's he again? The president of what?
He's the CEO of the Keller Williams. Brian, is Chris on?
We are working on that. I think he might be muted right now. If you could take maybe a couple more ahas, okay. We'll find out.
Sure. Okay. We've got one right here. Go ahead.
So this is a few words of encouragement as well for all of you who are feeling a little bit discouraged as we're talking about this challenge. It is a challenge. That's the name of it. So this is my second challenge that I've done here on the Loken group, and it gets easier. Like we're talking about and we're preaching about, this is a journey, and just like a marathon is, your first one is never easy. Second time around, it's a lot easier because you know at what point in the race how you're going to start to feel, where your weaknesses are going to be, and where your strengths can come in. So you're building habits for in the future when you continue to do this after this challenge. It's just going to become easier and easier, and the results are just going to increase and increase again. So keep it up, and I would encourage all of you to not say no to the next challenge that comes up, and to within your own groups as well and your own teams to continue to challenge each other and push each other to the next level.
Hey, that's awesome. Yep,
Lance,
go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Oh, good morning, Chris.
Good morning.
Chris,
how are
good
you?
morning. Thank you so much for doing this. We're going to have Brian tell everybody the protocol on this call, and then Chris, go ahead and you can take over. So thank you again for doing this.
Yeah, just wanted to remind everybody, your microphones are muted. If you want to chime in with a question, please do so. If you want to type it into the chat box, we will look for opportunities to ask your question as well. Chris, the floor is yours.
Well, I'm thrilled that you guys are doing this. You know, it's great. I've been listening for the last, 15 minutes to your ahas, and I just have a big smile on my face because for 27 years, every day this is what was happening in my office. So it's great to see that you guys are attacking your lead generation and your prospecting this way. I was also remembering back in the 90s. So we used to do this exact same thing in the 90s, but we had these days where we would have contests with top agents around the country, and there was no internet, so we'd have to call each other and report our numbers. But we'd set days where we were going to make 100 contacts or 100 contact days. And we did those quite often. Yeah, but typically, like for me personally, a day of prospecting was 30 to 40 contacts a day. So to do 100 was definitely a stretch for a lot of people, in the same type of stretch that you guys are going through. So anyways, it's great. It's great that you're doing this. Here's the important thing is that, remember, this isn't a sprint. What you're doing right now is a sprint, but really the success and the people that achieve the highest level of success in doing what we do are the ones that treat it as a marathon, and really a marathon that has no finish line. It's the consistency and the persistency that will have you win more times than anything else. So, in any case, Lance, you tell me, how can I bring value to the people on the call, and what would be of interest for us to talk about for a few minutes here?
Well, I think first and foremost, I mean, you're known very well for your dedication to lead generation and doing it on a consistent basis every day for years upon years. What was your mindset during that entire process?
You know, it was my single focus. It was the most important thing. I mean, without lead generation and lead follow-up, there's no leads, and without leads, there's nothing else to do. So it's the most important thing that I did on a daily basis, and I treated it accordingly. You know, I was hearing some of you sharing about distractions and this and that. You know, it was easier back then because, I mean, when I started, there were no cell phones, or if there were cell phones, they were mounted in someone's car, and some of you don't even know what that means. And there was no internet, so there was no Facebook or anything else to distract. There was a phone, an office phone, but I taped over the flashing message light because I never wanted to know that there was a voice message there waiting for me. When there was cell phones, I would leave my cell phone in the car, or I would hand it to my assistant when I went into prospect, or she would take it from me if I didn't hand it to her, so that I wouldn't be distracted that way. In the early days, before I even had an assistant, I would walk into the office and I would tell the receptionist, hey, I'm not here till 11 o'clock. And when I first would say that to the guy or the gal, they'd look at me weird because I'm standing right in front of them. But I said, no, I am not here till 11 o'clock. I remember, and I was very extreme. I remember one day saying, look, I don't care if the President of the United States pulls up in his limousine, walks in this front door, and says, I want Chris Heller to help me find a house. I'm not here. I'm not here. If the fire department, or if my wife or kids call and says the house is on fire, make sure that you call the fire department, and they've done that and they're out of the house, and then let me know later. So it was that I would set up structures so that I could just do what I needed to do with the least amount of distractions. Now here's the thing. Probably 90% of distractions are self-inflicted. You guys distract yourselves way more than you'll ever get distracted by someone else. And having the discipline to do that. Now, it was also easier for me to do because I was typically always dialing on two phones. And then eventually I hired a guy to build an auto dialer, but that still only happened on one headset, so the other headset I was manually dialing. And when I was doing that, I had to be really focused, right? You can't not be paying attention. But it was literally dialing and making calls as fast as I could just to get through it and make my contacts, set an appointment, and then have the rest of my day. So my mindset was it was the most important thing that there was to do, and I treated it that way.
Okay, awesome. And in your world, when you were doing lead generation, how many contacts did you make on a daily basis, and how many appointments were you able to set?
So it depended on the type of calls I was making. If I was making expired and for sale by owner calls, I would probably average about 12 contacts an hour. If I was doing just listed or just sold calls, or what some of you might call circle prospecting, if I was really smoking, I might be able to get up to using two phones, know, 20 an hour, but probably on average 17 or 18 an hour.
Well, that's awesome. And the best part is, and I hope everybody sees this, is that Chris knows his numbers by heart, you know, and if you know your numbers, you know what's happening at all times. It's awesome. So Chris, talk about your mindset and why were you better than every other agent around you, and what did you do differently than everybody else?
Well, I don't know if I was better than any other agent. I believed and acted like I was. And when I say acted, not outwardly, you know, or with ego or any of that stuff. But I really didn't pay attention to any of the other agents. I knew that if I just kept my blinders on, that I'd win the race. You know, yeah, you've seen this. You've seen this if you watch, whether you're watching the Olympics or track and field contest. If you see a race, you know, 100-yard dash, the guy that wins is the guy that's just focused straight ahead. The guys in the other lanes that are looking over their left shoulder or right shoulder to see, you know, where the competition is, usually are either behind the leader or getting passed by the leader. And I'd have people come up to me all the time and say, I want, you know, I'm going to do what you do, or I'm going to beat you, or I'm going to be number one. And in my mind, and sometimes out of my mouth, I would always think or say the same thing. Well, if you keep focusing on me, you'll never beat me. You know, it's because it's just impossible to do. So the mindset around what I did differently is early on I knew if I just did two things differently, I'd win more times than not, and that was just tell the truth and do what I say I was going to do, because I didn't see a lot of evidence of that around me in the industry. Then it became obvious that if I could be more persistent and more consistent in my activities every day, that I would win more times than not. And then I added skills to the mix. And so if I was more consistent, more persistent, as better skilled, and by better skilled I mean practice, and because I practiced every day, never didn't role play, that there was no one that was going to be better than me on a listing presentation, or no one that was going to be better than me on a script with a for sale by owner or an expired listing, or you know, any other call I was making.
Yep, that's fantastic. And the natural tendency, and I'm sure you heard this on the call this morning from the AHAs, is to let up the gas after initially starting an event. You know, everybody starts it with gusto and really gets going, and then they let up the gas. Any suggestions to get back into the swing of things? We have one more week to go. They've just been, today's the last of the 3 weeks, so we have one more week to go. What suggestions do you have as far as that's concerned?
Well, look at that. That is going to be a natural byproduct of this type of thing. So I saw agents that would go to a seminar and come back fired up and go lead generate like crazy, and a week or two later they were done. They were burned out. The agents that succeeded at the highest level were the ones that just consistently did it all the time. So you know, I think events like this are good team building events. I think they're good to break up the monotony of someone who's lead generating every day, and at the same time understand that there's just like an athlete that plays in the Super Bowl or that goes to the Olympic, afterwards there's going to be that natural letdown that you just sort of described, Lance.
Yeah. So if you were doing this contest and you were participating as a player in this contest, what would your mindset be?
You know, I would, so the only thing that would be different for me is that I'd be saying, okay, for this period of time, I'm going to do more than I normally do. And so I would, you know, schedule my time accordingly and my activities accordingly, and have to change my daily routine to accommodate that. And once I did that, then my mindset wouldn't be any different. Every day, my mindset was just to follow my schedule. I had all the things I needed to do in my schedule, so I didn't think about lead generating. I didn't think about lead follow-up. I didn't think about listing houses. I didn't think about negotiating deals. I didn't think about solving problems. All I thought about was following my schedule, because all those things were in my schedule. So I really treated my job. I didn't even treat my job as an agent. I didn't treat my job as someone who helped people buy and sell homes. I treated my job as to follow my schedule. So when I did that, I got the things done I needed to get done, and all those other things got accomplished. So my mindset, if I was doing this, would be just my schedule would be different while I was doing this, and my mindset would just be to follow that schedule.
So so what you're saying is you time block before you start the week out, and based on your time blocking schedule, you can set your appointments during one time, you can go on the appointments another time, and then you do your follow-up another time. So
every day of my career was time blocked. Correct. Yeah. And I didn't do it weekly. It was I would create a schedule, and then there were times when I would adjust the schedule or modify it or change it, but I had a printed physical schedule. It was the same, and everyone in my life knew my schedule. My family, my clients, my friends, the other agents, everyone, and because I made sure of that. So everyone knew when I, would be taking appointments, or when I'd be doing my lead generation or my lead follow-up, or when I wasn't working.
Well, one of the key facets that you just made the comment on is that you made it public to everybody, and as far as I'm concerned, that automatically gives you accountability right from the get-go, because everybody else is looking at you and making sure that you're sticking to your schedule, right?
It does. I guess for me, accountability wasn't a challenge for me, so that was important. But what it did that was important for me is that it gave me more freedom, and gave me more time, so that people didn't call me during certain times because they knew I wouldn't take the call and I wasn't available. If my schedule, because I didn't work on the weekends, and typically I'd only work one night a week, and so, there were, there wasn't upset. Look at if you have an expectation that you're going to go do all your dentist appointments, at 6 in the morning, and your dentist office isn't open, then you're going to be upset because you have that expectation. But if you know that you're the only time that your dentist sees patients is between whatever it might be, 9 and 2, then when you have to go between 9 and 2, you're not upset. That's what you were expecting.
Hey, Chris, we have a question for you from Adelina with Ben Kinney's team in Austin, Texas. She asked, Chris, when you were hitting moments of burnout, how did you get yourself back into fired up mode? Any ideas and or mindset I can share with the team?
I'm trying to think if I ever had moments of burnout. I think I worked really hard to sort of keep it between not getting too high and too low, sort of keeping it between those lines. The people that got too high, with every high there's an equivalent down or low. So I saw that all the time with agents, right? They'd sell a house and get super excited, and then have one fall out and get super depressed, and and these highs and lows, and they were like, these crazy manic people. and maybe caffeine attributed to that, I'm not sure. But so I worked consciously just sort of to keep it before the lines. I never got overly excited about good stuff that happened, and I never got overly bummed out about bad things that happened. So I think that made it much easier for me to just keep going. So I can't say that I ever believe I experienced burnout. Now there were days where I didn't want to do what I was doing. There were probably more days than not that I didn't want to do it. If you ask the people that work for me or people that are still on my team, there were plenty of days where I'd be sitting there on the phone. They'd be in the stand-up booth next to me making calls, and I'd say out loud, I don't want to do this today. And as I was saying that, I was just dialing the next number and making the next call. And as soon as I said that out loud, it disappeared. It turned to vapor and was gone. Now, I also, and this is back to a mindset issue, I also played games with my mind. And one of the affirmations I had was, I don't listen to my wants and don't want, right? I want to go to the beach today. I want to play golf today. I don't want to be here. I don't want to make any more calls. And so if I ever heard myself say want or don't want, I would just quickly release that thought. I don't listen to my wants or don't want. And the reason I did that, and the reason that I was able to do that, is because my goal was way, 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 way more important to me than what I wanted to do or didn't want to do on any given day. I was never going to get to the end of the month or the end of the year and look back and have to have any regret about not achieving what I wanted to achieve because I didn't do my job 20% of the time. I was not willing to have that in my life.
That's awesome. Hey, let's open it up for questions from the audience. And you want to ask Chris?
Hey, Chris, this is Ben Fixhorn from the Five Doors Network. Thanks for being here this morning. One question that I've got has to do with your prospecting. Now, if you were dedicated to it day in, day out to do that, were you dedicated to a specific contact number each day or specific time blocking? And if you were to like a specific contact number, how would you then replace in your schedule the missing contacts if you weren't able to get that done in the specific time allotted?
So it was a bit of both. So I always had a specific contact number because I worked back my income goals to the number of sales, to the number of listings sold, to the number of listings taken, to the number of listing appointments, to the amount of leads, to the amount of contacts. So my goal, if my goal was to make $1 million or $700,000 or $2 million, whatever it was, I worked that back to how many contacts I had to make on a daily basis. So there was always the contact goal because that was the first metric that allowed me to see if I was on track or not. Now I knew just from doing it so long and every day how long it would take me to make those contacts. So I would block the amount of time I needed to make those contacts. If I was coming up short, then I would either just continue on, or I always had time in the afternoon that was blocked that was for an appointment. If I didn't have an appointment, it was for more lead generation or more lead follow-up or those type of things. So there were several appointment slots each day, and rarely were all those appointment slots filled. So I had additional time where I would do that.
Yeah, I think that's huge. Thanks for sharing that. I mean, I think so many times people are like, I'm going to do my lead generation from 9 to noon, and then that's going to be good enough, and then they don't replace. If they miss their mark in that number, they're not replacing. They look at that free appointment time to get caught up in the transaction world of what we do, and not saying, hey, let's go back to the most important thing that we're supposed to be doing. So Thanks for that reminder.
Yep.
Chris, we have Tyler Bundy who asks, how did you role play every day? I can't get anyone to do with me consistently. And the ones that might are brand new agents, and I'm spending more time helping them than getting quality role play.
Well, so I had different partners. So if I and I did different types of role playing. So in the morning, and I role played whatever activity I was going to do. So the role play I did in the morning was role playing my lead generation scripts, my prospecting scripts, and that would be either with someone on my team, or sometimes with just other agents, and sometimes they were in other time zones or in other states, and in fact most of the time they were. And I may have, at any given time, I might have 5 or 6 different role play partners. I also in the early on when I was learning the scripts, I would do a lot of that internalization on my own. So I would write the scripts out, then I would chant them 10 times out loud as fast as I could, and do that every day. And when I did that out loud 10 times as fast as I could, then that really drilled them. I really was able to internalize them, and so I never had to think about what I was going to say next, or focus on what was going on in my head. I was able to listen to the person on the other end of the phone or in the presentation, and be very focused and very present, and much more effective that way. The listing presentation, that was just, again, me doing the listing presentation. Sometimes I did it with other agents in the office. Sometimes I did it with people on my team. Sometimes I would watch a recorded presentation. I remember at one stage I had, I think it was either me and someone on my team, or me and another agent. We had a challenge to watch our listing presentation every day for 90 days, and if you missed a day, you had to start over. And so those are just sort of some of the things we did. I also had accountability with some of the role play partners, and we would do things like say, okay, look, if you miss, we write a check to each other for $500, and back then that was, a significant amount of money, and we'd say, okay, anyone that misses the call, the other guy gets to cash the check, or anyone that doesn't meet their, do what they said they were going to do that day, the other guy cashes the check.
Hey, Chris, Greg Harrelson still talks to this day about how he took your money.
Yeah, Greg, yeah, well, I'm glad he's happy about that, because I wasn't. But Greg Harrelson was an accountability partner for a long while, and we did that, and that was he bought 2 tennis rackets with my money, and that was the last time I didn't do what I was supposed to do.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, let's get 2 more questions from the audience.
Hey, Chris, it's Dale Snyder here in Las Vegas. Can you hear me?
I sure can.
All right, thank you. This is powerful stuff. So you've obviously mastered the foundations of how to build your business. So I guess my question is more on the leadership side. You obviously have a lot of people in very important positions that report to you. How do you stay purposeful and help hold them accountable? And what books do you suggest on this topic?
Good question. I said good question because I'm sitting there going, how do I stay purposeful? I probably don't know what it feels like to not be purposeful. I don't, it's like I am, and I'm not saying this, and I don't know this is necessarily a good thing, but I'm about as purposeful in everything I do as I could probably possibly be. So I don't have to really think about that or do things to do that. So, and I'm sorry, what was the second part of the question?
And what books would you suggest on this topic?
So so look, there's John Maxwell is the guru of leadership books. So he has 20 to 30 different books that are all great leadership books. But there's I read actually last year I read a neat one, and it was a quick read by Mark Miller called I think it's called Chess or Checkers, and if any of you read that book, you'll go, oh man, there's a lot of books like this. But there's leadership lessons everywhere. I mean, in almost anything you read, in any book you read of any type, in any show you watch, on any movie, in restaurants, you can, if it's something that you're focused on and focus on developing yourself that way, you'll start to see opportunities and leadership lessons everywhere you look. And I know that because I see that, and I see it on airplanes when I get to be on airplanes a lot, and with the crews and the people at the gates, and so anyways, but there's tons of there's probably more books on this subject than there are in most subjects when it comes to the business world. So we're fortunate for that, and there's so many good ones. But back to your original question, I think the being purposeful, if we know that we have goals to accomplish and things that need to get done, that's what there is to do. I think I'll add one more thing to that is I always had the mindset was wherever I am, that's what I'm doing. So when I was at work, I worked. I never, I wasn't chatting or hanging out or anything else. And when I was playing, and I wasn't working. So I think that was that also attributed to that focus that I was doing what I was supposed to be doing at the time I was supposed to be doing it. So I hope that helped.
Okay, let's get one last question for Chris.
We used up all the brain power.
Brian, do you have any questions that were written into you?
I'm seeing none.
Hey Brian, how that last question about being purposeful and holding people accountable, we work together. How you see something I don't see?
I think lead by example comes to mind. You don't walk into Chris's office and waste time, because you don't walk into Chris's office seeing him, playing Yahoo chess or something like that. You just kind of know by being around him that he's busy, he's getting things done, and I think it would feel weird if you weren't doing it too.
Yeah, good point.
This is Rodney. Chris, this is Rodney Cameron in Atlanta, Georgia. Can you hear me?
I can, Rodney.
Good morning, and thank you for being on the call.
Sure.
I've watched your videos in BOLD and your lead generation time, and in fact, I've got a stand-up desk and a mirror now and everything as far as the scripts, and just like they've done in BOLD and Matt's coaching based on what the video was for you. At what point in your business did you get either a virtual assistant or other people to start doing the lead generation on your behalf?
So I started in residential real estate at the end of 1988, and then I took the role at International to help expand our company around the world in 2010. So I lead generated every day that I worked during that time. By 2010, when I stepped out of my business, I was really only doing a few things. I was lead generating every day. I was going on most of the listing appointments, and then just overseeing the team. By that point, I had stepped out of all the other stuff. But I liked lead generating. It was just a game to me. It was a challenge every day, and because I worked at it so much, I got good at it. When you do something that you're good at, it doesn't feel like work that much. In fact, it starts to feel fun. If I was, people say, do you play golf? I go, no. But if I was really good, I'd be playing golf all the time, and it'd be fun. If I were to play golf now, it probably wouldn't be that frustrating because my expectations would be fairly low. But it's not fun to suck at something. So I now all along, I shouldn't say all along, probably by my third year, I had other people that were also lead generating. Back then we just called them telemarketers. Now we call them ISAs or OSAs or USAs or whatever. So I always had people on my team that were lead generating along with me.
Okay, and the reason, because of the ISAs being such a big talk right now, my MAPS coach is saying not to pull me completely out of lead generation, because typically that's when it all falls apart, and we're working towards a balance of that. However, my newly hired VA for the last 2 weeks has a triple dialer and the Vulcan, and they've been able to get more contacts than me being able to be on the phone for those 2 to 3 hours each day, and they're getting me better leads and better quality appointments than some of the ones that I was doing. And so I'm taking BOLD right now with John Prescott, and he mentioned that he had an agent in BOLD that had 11 ISAs, and they were rocking the numbers out. And so I'm just wondering, at what point do I just go and hire 3, 4, 5 ISAs and let them do it all, and I just go on appointments?
Yeah, I think you let the numbers make that decision. When you're doing it. I never hired anyone that was, and I would have loved to. I'm not saying this because I didn't do it purposely, but I never found anyone that could do it as well as I, and not because I had any magic talent, but I had, when you practice every day for whether it's 10 years or 20 years or whatever, unless you're doing something terribly wrong, you're going to get better. So now I would hire people that would be really good and would get results, but it never made sense for me to stop doing it. If whatever they got was just adding to it. Now, if we got to the place where, and there were times where there were, I wouldn't say too many appointments, but there were so many that I would just get fatigued, and whenever you're on an appointment and you're hoping that they're going to say they want to think about it, and you know you're not going to handle that objection right then, and you just want to get out of there, then it's probably too many appointments that day or that week. But then I was just developing someone else to go on a lot of those appointments so I could focus on the better ones. When by better, I mean maybe closer to my office or higher price points, or the ones that would yield a bigger return. But really, I think the answer to your question is the numbers will determine that. When you can hire someone and they become a profit center for your business, then there's not a lot of debate that needs to take place whether that would probably be a good move or not.
Okay. Chris, this is Lance. The other thing I'll say about that is you do what you're passionate about and you do what you're the best at, and then you hire complementary people around you. For instance, you are an expert at lead generating. You may have had other listing agents or buyer agents, but that was your expertise. For somebody else, such as myself, lead generation is not my expertise, so you hire people that are experts at doing that, and that just makes your entire organization that much better.
Well, and to tie that all in, you know, I'm not a fan of the big phone calls, sitting down 2-3 hours a day and doing that. I'm great with networking groups. I'm great at going to events. I'm great at doing festivals and going out and talking to people. Throw a monkey suit on me and let me go out and play with, you know, a community and be the star of the show, you know, everything. And that's where I become best, is face-to-face and out in a group in public. Getting on the phone and you know, and I have my scripts down and I'm rehearsing and doing things all the time, and I do my phone calls. However, that's not my sweet spot. And so for me, let me go to a networking event every day, or let me go to different community social things, and I'm great. I will get everybody, I will find out information, and I'll bring it back and turn it over to an assistant and let them put the systems in place. So the phone calls is where I have an issue a lot of times, and that's why I'm really loving the virtual assistant, because they're on these auto dialers and they're scripted and they're making these great appointments, and it allows me to continue to have that bond and the relationship with either the sphere of influence, 33 touch, or starting that initial relationship.
Yeah, if you can get enough appointments doing that, I think that's right, and I think those are both great points. I mean, I'd rather be on the phone than go to a social event, because I'm not social. But yeah, I think doing the things that you're good at, and this goes for those of you building teams. You know, you want to hire people that are really good at the role that you're hiring for, and if they're not, then you either have to change their role or, you know, change their place of employment.
Hey, Chris, thank you so much for taking the time today. Do you have one parting advice that you want to share with the team before we let you go on your call?
I think the only thing I'd probably say is, hopefully you all have goals that are really, really important. And if you keep the focus on achieving that goal, then the thing that you're doing that hour or that day doesn't become such a big deal, because you're focused on, you know, that financial goal and what that will do for you. You know, being able to buy that new car, or buy that house, or pay off your mortgage, or take that vacation, or you know, pay off your parents' house, or whatever it is. If you can determine what that is and have it be something that is way more important than what you feel like doing or don't feel like doing, or making one more call, and are focused on that, then the other stuff just becomes, you know, the normal stuff. If you're focused on wanting to get in great shape, then, you know, going to the gym doesn't become this big tug-of-war. If you're just focused on whether you want to go to the gym or not, then, you know, you're going to have that argument in your head, and not today, or maybe later, or I'm going to sleep in, or this or that. But if you're saying, okay, my health or my fitness or how I feel or how I look or whatever it might be for you is really important, and I want to do this, then going to the gym just becomes a, you know, like brushing your teeth. It's something to say, okay, well, yeah, I'm going to go do that now.
That's great words of advice. Thank you so much, Chris, and we greatly appreciate you taking the time out for this call today, and looking forward to the final week of lead generating in this contest. So thank you again.
You're welcome. Thank you, and go get them, guys.
Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone. This was a great call. I greatly appreciate it. Let's kick butt this last week, okay? Have a great day.